The Pope and Young Club wants to welcome you as we rally together to ensure our bow hunting opportunities for today and tomorrow. You've come to the podcast that believes in preserving, protecting, and promoting the passion for bow hunting. Join us as we strive to be the voice of today's bow hunter. This is the Pope and Young Podcast. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Pope and Young Podcast. I am joined, as always, by my co-host, Tim Rzuski, and we've got the Chief Commanding Officer, the guy in charge, Mr. Justin Spring. We don't really know what we're here to do. We're here just to, well, Justin said it best. What are we here to do, Justin?
Life, liberty, and discuss the pursuit of the North American wildlife.
And Tim said, then why are me and Dylan here?
And why are you reporting from a hotel room?
Hard in the paint, man. Hustling for conservation, hustling for Pope and Young.
I was just making sure the wife didn't kick you out.
Not yet. But I haven't been home for a couple months, so maybe I have been. I don't know.
Tim, I'm curious. You said, why are we on? Which one of those, don't you have figured out? I mean, you have to be able to give input on one of the three, right?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we're all pursuing those things, right? Dylan and I have not traveled as much to hunt. I mean, I have a little bit. Dylan has a little bit, but when I think of the 29, I'm thinking of more like the 7.
Well, there's our starting spot, Tim. What are the attainable ones for you?
Well, now that we got our draw results back from Alaska, nothing in Alaska. I think some of those are attainable. I can easily name off what's not. I probably am not going to ever be fortunate enough to get a drawn moose tag. I might. Probably am not going to pursue more than one caribou unless luck really falls in my lap. I definitely probably won't ever touch sheep unless I get a draw, say in Oregon or something. But everything else is on the board in hopes and dreams.
I mean, Tim, there's the conservation intro. We do a better job conserving wildlife. We get more opportunities for sheep or moose. We're all doing all of them.
Exactly. It's kind of like the presumed ideology that trophy hunter doesn't eat the meat. I guess we're just like trophy hunters. We are practicing conservation by selectively not hunting certain species.
Justin, does your wife listen to podcasts?
She does, and I'm sure she'll listen to this one. So please don't tell her what I say about her behind her back.
No, because you did get drawn. The Alaska draws came out while we were at Western.
Yeah.
And you did get drawn. So what are you headed to Alaska to hunt?
A goose.
One singular goose, huh?
A singular goose. And it is the second time I've gone in pursuit of this goose, which I'm really not sure how that happens statistically. There's only 25 of these non-resident tags. And I think the last time almost 4,000 people applied. And one of my good hunting buddies has drawn it twice, and now I have, which I wish I knew the secret to tell everybody on how to draw, but if I could figure it out, I'd utilize it for a musk ox or a bison or something else up there, not a dang bird.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Are you going to go back to that same place you were just at for the ducks?
Oh, we're doing some research. There's, they're in a few spots. One potential is Kodiak, and the time you hunt them would be the blacktail rut. I'm trying to decide if I want to try to go chase Sitka blacktails. While I'm chasing that, there's another area that has a run of steelhead that kind of intrigued to go try to catch a steelhead on a fly and shoot an emperor goose. There's a island further out the Aleutian chain that there's a potential of seeing some migrant birds from Russia, that there's not a lot of places you can hunt them, but it's all coming down to vacation and trying to keep the wife happy because she hasn't drawn it yet. And so I'm hoping to stay married by picking a destination she's happy with.
All right, that brings up a good question. Because we talked in depth kind of about the whole Sitka blacktail non-resident deal. What drove the decision to lower the tags from $3 for non-residents to $1 for non-residents? Was it the right decision? Like, what's it going to accomplish? I kind of want to unpack that because we talked a lot about that while at Western.
Now, again, isn't that just Kodiak?
So there's different regions. I know they've reduced. I've been told they've reduced the harvest on Prince of Wales, which we've spent some time there. Kodiak, I do not know. I think it is. I think it is $1, but I'm not positive. I haven't looked into that yet. Realistically, I'm a little more familiar with the Prince of Wales area. That's all the Tongass National Forest. Pretty important to me, I guess, when we talk about our public lands and how they're managed and whatnot and the wildlife. I've followed that area a little bit closer. Overall, the deer population on Prince of Wales Island is down. Now, what we commonly see in wildlife, everybody wants to point, to the big bad wolf. In most cases, it's generally more than one factor. That's what we have going on Prince of Wales, where they've reduced this harvest. You don't have the federal timber harvest anymore. Deer is an early successional species. They need the old growth timber for thermal cover, but they also need the forage source. And so back in the day when Prince of Wales was thriving with deer, there was a lot of logging going on, and so there was a lot of food for the deer, and so you had a higher population. So you reduce the amount of forage for them. You have a predator that was looked at on whether or not they were going to list it as an endangered species as a subpopulation of wolf. The U.S. Fish and Wildlife decided not to do that. And so they did not get listed, but it's still a very limited wolf trapping season, harvesting season. And then the third thing there is the illegal take. They put out the results every year when Alaska Fish and Game does a bust there, and the number of people being pinched for poaching, both locals and also Alaska residents and non-residents, is very discouraging, the amount of illegal take happening. And so, you could fix any one of those problems and you'd probably still have a reduced population. But, the Alaska Fish and Game needed to do something, and realistically, a hunter traveling there, do they really need to be taking $3 or $4 out of that population? I don't know. Now, does it do any good for overall game management? Generally speaking, shooting male specimens doesn't hurt a population, so it will have an effect. I'm not sure, but there you have it. So there's not a definitive answer. The deer population's down, something's going on. They're trying to do something about it to turn it around, but is that the answer? I'm not going to get behind it 100% and say this is what they should have done, and I support it completely.
Okay, so that begs even more questions for me, because if you made the statement that harvesting males does not affect a population. So then why do some states, and I live in one, Kansas is a $1 state, and talking whitetails, of course, but we could apply it to any species. Why then do some states say $2, some states say $1, some say $3, but then does are just, some states 1 a day, some states, 6 a year. Why is it that bucks are so much more limited when it comes to tag filling than does?
So when I say that killing males doesn't hurt the population, I guess I should clarify that. You 100% can drive your age structure, and a lot of those single bucks or antler point restrictions, or those restrictions we see on the males, is more trying to get what the hunters want, right? So if you want an older age class of buck, you can't be shooting them all at 2 and 3. You got to let them get some age on them. And so a state that says $1, that takes the pressure off those younger deer. It lets them get a little bit of age on them. They're still breeding. The does are not getting bred. It's just there's more age structure, and generally speaking, that is a better population. So when the issue on Prince of Wales wasn't that the age structure was messed up. It's the overall population. Generally, when that's the case, you're going to want to adjust your doe harvest, not as much your buck harvest.
Gotcha. So, and we kind of talked about this, and you alluded to it. Is it the right answer? We don't really know yet, but I have trouble. I have trouble wrapping my head around that there are that many non-residents going and killing $3. So I'd be really interested to know. I'd be really interested to know how many non-residents go and hunt Sitka blacktails in Alaska, and how many of those non-residents that are hunting Sitka blacktail are killing $3.
And you also got to take into account, and this is a very interesting fact, is Alaska has subsistence harvest, right? There's people that live in Alaska that their food source is the wildlife, and there's separate regulations for them and whatnot. They take priority. And so is $3 being taken by a non-resident hurting the population? Probably not. Potentially, could it reduce the chance that a resident that's literally living off that meat, making it harder for them to get it? There's not rock solid evidence for or against, but that may be part of the justification of reducing that non-resident limit. Realistically, if you're coming from the lower 48 to travel there, are you going to utilize the meat? Certainly. Are you going to waste it? Definitely not. But is it contingent to your survival? Yeah, most likely the bank account's solid enough to make it up there and do the hunt anyway. You're going to make it through the winter whether or not you bring home 3 deer. So,
yeah. Well, and I've talked a lot about that, not only on this platform, but on others. It's such a weird society that the hunting culture is so weird right now, because you're absolutely right, dude. Like, we don't live, even if we say I live purely off wild game, it's not like if I don't fill a tag, my family goes hungry.
right.
But that is the case in some cultures. Like, that is the case in some areas. And so it's really hard for us to understand, like, there are people in this world where if they don't hunt, they don't eat. Because if I don't kill something, I run to Walmart. I'd pick up some beef. I'd pick up some pork, whatever. Or, we have an overabundance of meat left over from last year. So that begs the question, and we might get down a massive rabbit hole here. Is it bad? What do you say to the guy that I don't want to burn any bridges here. What do you say to the guy that says it is bad for people who hop state to state and kill 6 deer a year, 7, 8, 9 deer a year? Because there's no way you're utilizing all that meat. Like, there's no way that you need all of that meat to survive. You're strictly going to kill more animals. You know what I mean?
No, it's a question that the first time it was posed to me, it made me pause and think, like, am I being kind of a jerk that year that I draw 2 or 3 tags? Am I taking opportunity from another hunter that may prevent them from pursuing the sport? And am I actually hurting the North American model? I think you need to be cautious about it. I think if you're thinking about it, you're probably not doing anything that would hurt anything. Like, hey, I've been waiting hypothetically 18 years to draw a mule deer tag in Utah, for example, and then every year I get my over-the-counter tag in Montana. I'd say that one deer that you've bought your license, you've applied, you've played the game for 18 years for the opportunity to go, you're not really hurting anything. Now, that being said, you don't find the buck that you wanted, you just shoot one to shoot one because, oh, well, I deserve one. I've waited this long. I mean, I'm not happy with it. I'd argue that maybe you shouldn't take that buck. Maybe you should let it go. But at the same time, going there and hunting and putting in for that opportunity for that dream, velvet mule deer that you can kill with your bow or something, and that buck presents an opportunity. I don't think there's anything wrong with taking that, as long as you're cognizant, you're not just going every state you can, trying to stack up as many dead deer as you can, knowing you can't use the meat. I think that's different.
because you always get the guy who responds with, yeah, but I donate the meat.
Yeah.
And hey, that's a good thing. Like, I donate meat as well. But would you be doing more? And hey, keep donating me. I'm not saying that, because I work, I work really closely with a food bank, being that I'm on a church staff. And so I know the necessity of meat like that we need to have. So I'm not saying stop donating, but as hunters creating new hunters, does it do more to donate meat, or does it do more to introduce somebody to hunting so they can go out and get their own meat? Like, there's a big difference there. Now, I understand if you can't purchase, if you can't afford to buy meat, then it's difficult to afford to go hunting. I get that as well. But these are just questions that, when we talked about on the last episode with Cody Robbins, we kind of got into this discussion of ethics and what is ethics. And I think to be an ethical outdoorsman, to be an ethical sportsman, to be an ethical bow hunter, we have to challenge ourselves with these questions. Like, why do I do the things I'm doing? Why am I going to kill these deer? Why am I traveling to kill this elk, this bear, this turkey, this one goose? Because if we're not challenging ourselves with those questions, then we're doing it just to do it.
Right. And I mean, you think about it, like you said, I mean, you're not an ethical hunter if you're not, considering how big is my footprint? Am I hurting the sport? Am I helping the sport? Am I giving hunters a good name when I travel? Why am I traveling? Am I purely seeking the thrill of a kill? I mean, obviously, as a hunter, you always think, there's more to it than that. And for me, there is. I mean, I'm spending how much to go to the freaking Aleutian chain to go chase a single goose? No, it's not. It's about the experience. I talked about the different places we can go, the different things we could see, an experience I get to have with my wife. It's the whole picture, right? But I mean, if you're going and just trying to stack up as many as you can in a year to prove your prowess, I'd say that we as a hunting community might need to make sure that's not why we're doing it.
Yeah. So what is the allure for one goose? Like, I can't imagine flying to Alaska, spending all this time, effort, and money for one bird. Like, that doesn't. And if most people who have heard me talk on podcasts have talked about how I hate turkey hunting for that reason, because it's one bird no matter what. But like, I can't imagine. Like, you were so pumped about this tag. I'm like, it's one goose. Like,
but it's about the opportunity to go to Alaska and experience the Aleutian chain. This one bird was on the endangered species list. Their population dropped dramatically, and they were closed off. And it's a conservation success story of all the work that we've done and bringing back tundra, and then all the efforts on the Kuskokwim Delta and all the work done there by everybody. Their population turned around and it came back, and residents had the opportunity to hunt them. And now all of a sudden the populations are robust enough and doing well enough that they're allowing 25 non-resident tags. You're participating in conservation. I mean, those communities, those places we're going, yeah, we're taking money into there. And no, is that what they're living off of? Let's be realistic. I'm not funding the entire town by any means, but they see us coming, they see us respecting it, it drives that respect for that species to allow them to come back more. I mean, it's not a goose. I can shoot a goose in my field if I just want a goose. It's this experience, it's this particular goose, it's everything that surrounds it. It's the other seabirds that are up there. I mean, you ever seen, the last time we were up there on the last hunt, we saw a shmew. It's a bird that lives in Russia that rarely comes to the US. If you're a birder, it's a big, exciting thing. My wife happens to be a birder. We saw a shmew. Just as much of a highlight as seeing that goose come in that I was able to take. And so, that's
I don't even know what that is. I got to Google that.
Oh, it's a good one. You'll like it's like a.
How do you spell it?
SMEW, I believe. Shmew.
Sound it out, Dylan.
Oh my gosh. That is dope looking.
I would have never seen that if I would have drawn that random goose tag and flown out on the Aleutian Peninsula to look for a goose.
That's cool.
that's one of the experiences that draws me to do these oddity hunts.
Now, did you see a male or a female? There's
It
obviously
was
a
a
lot.
male. I mean, he was, yeah, like.
Okay,
And
so I haven't seen pictures showing which one's which. Is that the super white one?
yeah.
Oh, that's so cool. That is cool. You brought up another valid point too, about funding that area and that region. And that's something that a lot of people don't give enough credit to as hunters. Because I live in rural America. Our town's 5,000 people. It's a bunch of wheat farmers, and come hunting season, like the town knows I'm about to make money. Whether it's the hotel that's, having out of state hunters stay at the hotel, whether it's the restaurants knowing, hey, our lunches are going to be busy because the pheasant hunters are coming in to eat every day, whether it's, our, like the local KOA, like their cabins are booked out for the whole fall. And like, that's a big money driver for a lot of people, is the hunters that come to a community. And so that goes back to the idea of why do I travel to, like, why do I do this? And obviously, like, you could go to the extreme to look at that with like Africa, because a lot of people don't understand, like, one hunter will fund a tribe for months just by going and hunting there. Now, like you said, is that the same here for Wellington, Kansas? No, like, one deer hunter doesn't come in and just change everybody's income. But throughout pheasant and duck season and deer season, they bring a lot of money into our area. Those farmers, that are having a struggling year because the wheat is down, knows, well, man, those hunters are going to write me a check for the lease, and that's going to get my family by. A lot of people don't think about that when it comes to generating funds for the areas they're hunting in.
Yeah, no, and I mean, obviously even Alaska's a little more extreme. We went out to St. Paul Island, and I don't know if you're familiar with out there, but there was a crab fishery that basically completely funded this island. Well, whatever the cause may be, that crab population basically failed. And so
Oh,
this little village out in the middle of the Bering Sea that lived off of a crab processing plant has zero income now, other than, the duck hunters and the birders that travel there. And that's all they've got. I mean, the obviously there's, government subsidy and different things that they've got going on that's helping them get by. But I mean, they were excited to see us come into the bar. We went to the grocery store and bought food. I mean, we went to the local museum and bought a couple postcards and tried to do what we could, because we know that they're kind of hurting. And no, I mean, does it make all the difference in the world? No, but at the same time, it's an effect of going out there to chase that one random bird to get. Why else would I have ever been on St. Paul Island? I mean, I'm
yeah.
not going to get on a plane, fly out there, land, and hang out for 5 days just because, like, I've never been there. It gives you an excuse to go there, gives you an excuse to experience it, be in the little bobbing boat in the Bering Sea in 20-foot waves. Like, yeah, I mean, you look at it from a distance, like, wow, I am not right in the head. I flew all the way out here to risk my life to shoot a stinky duck that doesn't even taste that good.
And
Yeah,
there in
no.
10 minutes, we got him to admit it. He's not right in the head.
Well, you guys knew that a long time ago.
So,
Well, as you can see, I had some camera issues. Now I've got the laptop one working. You know what I found? And you can't see it on the black lip of this by the camera. There is a slide to turn the camera or disengage it. Did not know that until today.
so your camera's been disengaged all this time, and you're like, man, this laptop sucks. And all this time you had a camera right there, huh?
While I was down, I was Googling. I'm like, a slide, and I slid my finger over there, and I'm like, oh my God.
See, generally, Tim, I'd take this opportunity to make fun of you, but I myself was guilty of the same thing on my last laptop, so I can't say much.
So what else do you have this year, Justin, other than the one bird?
I mean,
Well, we don't really know yet, do we? I mean, we're just now getting into the application season.
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I forgot you guys all live off draws.
yeah. See, we have Christmas about 20 times a year. Usually it's coal in the stockings. Every now and then you draw a bird tag, right?
Yeah, no, every once, I mean, and the worst part is the results come up and it doesn't say what the hunt is. It just gives you the numbers and the whole list. And there's no, 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 yes, no. And you look at the number and you're like, I'm pretty sure that's a goose. Like, I'm about 85% sure that's a goose, but I got to look it up. And you Google it, and you type in the hunt number, and you're like, "Ah, it is the goose. It is not the muskox. It's not the bison. It's not the once in a lifetime moose float. It's not the caribou. It's not the Southeast Alaska. It's the goose." Well, at least I get to go to Alaska.
That's cool. Yeah, I forgot you guys don't just get to go hunt. Like, I forgot you guys can't just like look and say, that's what I want to hunt. I'm going to go hunt.
Well, you're just talking about one species, though, Dylan. We could just go get an over-the-counter tag locally for deer of some kind, but just to get the opportunity to do something out of state or in an area that you've been looking forward to, or with a method or a weapon that maybe you don't use in your home state or something because of the difficulty to draw. I only archery hunt out of state for elk. In state, I hunt with the family on a rifle hunt. And so I look forward to about 7 draw result dates for elk. And yeah, we're just now getting into the application period. I think spring bear results for Oregon come out tomorrow. That's the first one other than Alaska. Oh, wait. I don't know if Wyoming's non-resident. No, it's not out yet. I haven't heard on that one yet. But we're just getting started on those.
Dylan, did you put in for any of the tags at Western at the show we were just at?
No, I didn't.
What?
You got to play to win.
That is the only reason to go to the Western Expo.
Well, the only reason to go is because your boss says, hey, be here. And I'm like, all right, cool. No, I did not. And that's something to my demise. Like, I need to play the tag game a little more. I just don't. Like, I don't know why. Not that I don't want to. Not that I don't see the appeal. Not that I don't see the benefit and the value. I just don't. I need to, though.
I like it, though, when Dylan wants to go on a bear hunt or an elk hunt, he just buys a hunt at one of our bashes or at our convention. So, hey, I don't knock him there. In fact, I like it.
That's what I do.
Yeah, you don't need to start applying, Dylan. We need those purchases. Keep that up.
Well, I was so mad last year, dude. I had planned all this out. It was a I don't even remember where it was at, but it was a bear hunt with Jim Willems, and they were basically selling the last spot on this hunt with Jim Willems. And so I'd call him like, hey, dude, I'm going to buy this hunt at convention. And he's like, well, sweet, man. Cause he has a house here in Kansas, just an hour from me. He's like, we can drive up together, save you all that travel expense. And I'm like, done. And so we're there and I'm bidding on it. And I had told my wife, I'm like, all right. And I had already had an elk hunt plan that year. So I had to be a little easy. And I said, I'm going to go up to X amount. And it went for like $150 more. And so I was like texting her, trying to get an answer back before he said sold. And I'm like, come on, $200 more than I told you. And she would answer me. So I just let it go. But I didn't get it.
Is that why Jim told me to bid you up a lot?
Yeah, probably why. He's like, I don't want to hunt. I don't want to hunt with this guy. Whatever happens, don't let Dylan win that, is what he probably said.
Dylan, you asked me if my wife listened to podcasts. You just proved yours didn't, because you said you told your wife real aggressively. And no, you didn't.
No, she 100% doesn't listen.
Can I please have this much money for a hunt? It'd be really fun.
She does not listen. No, she doesn't. And actually there was one time I was, it was on another podcast and I was telling a story. And I said, I can say this because my wife will never listen. And I don't remember what I said, but I said something bad about her. And while sitting down at dinner that night, and my son was like, oh yeah, hey mom, by the way, dad said today on a podcast, this, that, and the other. And he said he could say it because you never listen. And I'm like, dude, we got to have a chat here, bud. Like, we got to talk about some things.
I mean, Dylan, you got a son talking to the law. He's throwing you under the bus. I mean, you might have to look in the mirror a little bit.
Well, I think when he looks in the mirror, that kid probably followed in the same steps. He's going to turn out to be a fine young man one day.
He also set our trash can on fire last week. Didn't tell you that one yet, Tim. I was just like walking through the house and it was just him and I here. And I'm like, why do I smell smoke? And he runs out of the kitchen, like down the hallway. And I'm like, what the heck? And so I go in the kitchen and our trash can's on fire. And I'm like, dude. And so I like yell at him to come back in there. And oh my gosh, it's always something with that kid. Like it's always something.
Well, was he ashing his ciggy in the fire in the trash can, or how'd this happen?
No, he was playing with a lighter and lit a paper bowl on fire, and then just thought, well, I'll just throw it in the trash can. Well, the paper bowl lit the trash can on fire, and oh my gosh.
You'll have that. You'll have that.
Oh, yeah. I did. I told my mom that story, and she reminded me that I lit our carpet on fire one time when I was a kid. So, she said I was just paying for my raisin, but yeah, he's a riot. I'll tell you what though, it's never ever boring with him. Like that's for sure.
Yeah, I know what my wife and I commonly talk about things you never thought you'll find yourself saying, before becoming a parent.
Yeah.
My personal favorite is we don't chase turkeys with no pants on. Like
How long did that last?
I resulted in an ER visit because he did not listen, took off after the turkeys, endoed, buried his lip right into the edge of the door, and split his lip completely through. So we spent, it was around Christmas time when he was younger. My wife said, I think we should take him to the ER. I said, he'll be fine. And she rephrased and said, we're going to the ER. Are you coming with us? And I did.
That's hilarious. I was actually hoping it was going to turn the tide and you'd be like, yeah, Becca told me not to hunt turkeys in my underwear. But turns out it was actually the sun.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then minutes after that, what's funny is my wife got home and I was telling her and then she looks and she just goes, well, now he's peeing off the back deck. And I'm like, well, and so I go out there to get him and the neighbors were outside like laughing at him. I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, come on. What are you doing?
Hey, your neighbors are too close. I mean, I believe it was Phil Robertson that said, if you can't piss off your porch in peace, you live too close to your neighbors.
It's probably true too. Yeah. Luckily the gentleman that, I did tell the story on the episode where Tucker shot out the back glass, didn't I?
Yeah.
Luckily, the gentleman that he did that to it runs the chapter of Pheasants Forever here. So he thought it was really funny that a kid wanted to shoot a bird. So he was cool about it. Obviously, I still have to pay for a whole back sliding glass door, but at least he was cool about it. So the police officer was questioning my son, and the whole time I'm just thinking, like, please don't let him say that we have 17 3D targets in the backyard. Like, please let him, please let my son pitch this as like it was a one-time accident, not like we shoot in our backyard every day.
I don't normally miss.
Oh my gosh, dude. It was a riot. So Tim, we're talking about draws. If you could draw anything that you've put in for, what would it be?
Well, I think obviously any of the once in a lifetimes, bighorn sheep, mountain goat. In some states, moose is once in a lifetime or very, very difficult. Bison in a couple states that I play in. But a Unit 9 Arizona elk tag would be just as exciting. There's things that aren't even in draws. I mean, the hunters that are fortunate enough to go hunt polar bears or go up and hunt stones and Dall sheep like that. Some of those hunts you can attain without a draw, but I would like to do those. But as far as a draw, it would just be a lot of relief actually if I were one of the lucky people in Oregon that gets to draw a sheep tag. So the odds are so low, and there are a decent number of tags, but it's just so low that when you meet someone or someone in the family or in your circle that draws, everybody wants to go because it's probably the only time you're ever going to go. You probably won't be the tag holder yourself.
So we need to put out a podcast and it's going to take some homework, but we need to put out a podcast just about like the best opportunities to hunt species without having to draw. What species do you absolutely have to draw? There's no way to hunt them without drawing. What are some good states that offer, over the counter elk, over the counter bear, over the counter blacktail, or over the counter whatever else? I think that'd be cool just to give that information out, because I don't know. I look at states where I can just buy a tag and go hunting. Which is why I'm stuck hunting with Justin for bears. But what are you gonna do?
Oh, you might talk your way out of your invite, Tim. You want to hunt bears in Montana this year?
Yeah, I'll be there. Especially if you can hunt them from the porch in your underwear.
You can, indeed, you can. Yeah, that's the thing.
Becca will tell you not to, though. She will get in trouble.
She won't tell me not to.
She'll let you guys do whatever you want. I'd be told to go put clothes on, and I'd be in deep trouble. You guys would be fine. No, it's funny you bring that up, though, Dylan, because honestly, I mean, Tim touched on the thin horns, the dolls and the stones. Right now, those are, for the lion's share of hunters, untouchable. There's a few. There's some draws, there's some companies that you can sign up for and maybe win a hunt that might give you the opportunity to do that for those. But, honestly, I'm trying to think. I'd guess less than, there's 29 species you can pursue. I'd bet 20 of them there's a way that you could draw. There's a way you could do it. I mean, it's not as hard as you think. Everybody always gives me a hard time. Oh, you've got to go everywhere and do everything. And it's like, I've been very fortunate, and I have a hot hand in drawing. But again, I mean, the 3 moose I killed were all DIY, either draw tags or just a hunt that a buddy called and said, "Hey, you want to go do this?" And we took the plunge and did it. Oregon mountain goat tag, when I drew that, none of my friends were putting in. I was like, well, somebody's got to draw, might as well be me. And sure enough, at the time there was 1,317 applicants for one tag, and be darned if I didn't get, my name wasn't pulled for the one. And so, I mean, a lot of people complain about draws and how they never draw, but man, you got to play to win,
if you're not putting in, then don't ask the question. It's kind of like people that don't vote. It's hard to complain and hard to be disgruntled or frustrated or any of that. It's hard to be a victim of point creep if you're not buying points. And,
right.
I play the game. I have made mistakes in the draw and drawn stuff that maybe I shouldn't have drawn, that now it's going to be a 10-year turnaround before I get another chance. But then there's those ones, like you're asking, Dylan, or I'm answering your question, is that I would probably pick one of the once in a lifetimes, just simply so that I could go on a hunt for a species that I obviously haven't before.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, Dylan, the answer 100% on what tag: archery, Henry Mountains bison tag in Utah, hands down. That is the hunt. And it's not that I want to shoot a bison with a bow. It's the challenge of it. It's the fact that that's as wild as bison get. Like, yeah, it'd be cool to hunt them with the bow and kill them with the bow, but it's just the opportunity to hunt those bison with that tag. I mean, a couple of our board members played the game, took them 20 some years to draw. That's the one. If all of a sudden, I found a Powerball ticket on the side of the road that was worth $1 million and I could buy whatever, that's the ticket I'm buying, and just hands down.
Yeah.
At our Bow Hunter Bash in Utah coming up in April, and in the past 2 years, we take our workshop students and the staff and board members that are there, wounded warriors who's visit us, over to Craig Minton's house, one of our official measures. Beautiful place. He is a resident, obviously, of Utah, and as of last year, he has drawn and harvested every species in Utah. That's just got to be two things. It's got to be wonderful. It's got to be a little bit of a relief. How many people can actually say they've done that, though? And then it's got to be a little bit disappointing. So now he's got to, sit there and get in line with the rest of us in other states, so to speak. But I can't fathom drawing in Oregon, for example, a sheep tag and a mountain goat tag, 2 once-a-lifetime tags. I can't even fathom. I think 5 or 6 people have done it in Oregon, maybe, but it's not many.
What state offers in the lower 48 offers the most of the 29?
I think Montana, Washington, and Oregon have the most species. They're all real close. The one that Oregon doesn't have is a moose, and the one that Washington doesn't have, when you're comparing them to each other, is pronghorn. But I think Montana is lacking blacktail and Roosevelt's. So, but they've got moose that we don't, and I guess wolves.
Tim, you forgot California.
Yeah, California has
3 species of elk, 3 species of deer, black bear, pronghorn. I mean, yeah, they're. I think when I calculated it, California has. They've got sheep. They've got the single state with the most, I believe, is California. Which I hate to admit.
Alaska's number 1, obviously. And then you've got.
They don't have.
I mean, what does Alaska have? Let's calculate it out here. They've got 3 bears, 1 caribou.
Don't they have 4 bears?
You cannot. Well,
can you hunt polar bear in Alaska?
If you're a native coastal dwelling Alaskan, you can continue to hunt polar bears in Alaska. But in Alaska, generally speaking, no. Polar bears are not huntable in Alaska. So you've got 3 huntable bears, you've got a caribou, you've got a moose, you've got Sitka blacktail,
bison and elk, Roosevelt's.
Yeah, you've got a sheep and a goat. Yeah, so they beat California, but
and
not
walrus.
Yeah,
I found a cool list, and I don't just say it's cool because Arkansas made the list.
When did Arkansas make it? They have 2, right? 3? You have cougar there?
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know if you can hunt them though.
They're black, Tim.
Yeah.
That's Black Panther country.
Black Panther country.
Yeah, that's what they called me in high school too. The best state to hunt really big game, Alaska. Best state for the quail trifecta. What do you think it is?
Texas.
The what?
It says the quail trifecta. This is an article put out by Onyx Maps.
Arizona.
Arizona or New Mexico. Okay.
Black bears and bunnies.
Bears and bunnies.
Oregon.
Michigan?
Arkansas.
How many bunnies do you have?
I guess a lot. Obviously I'm not going to read through the whole article, but best state for deer and hogs. And it's not Texas because that would have been my immediate first guess.
California?
What's their choice?
Mississippi.
Huh.
Best state for 2 turkeys.
2.
What if you can shoot like 7?
I should say two of the species of turkeys. Best state for 2 of the species.
Montana or Idaho?
Texas.
Rio's and Eastern's okay.
And then
Tim, I think technically the Northwest, all the turkeys are reintroduced, and so it's not a true yes, there is numerous species in one state, but it's not their native range, so they don't count them.
Oh, sure. I mean, the Merriams that are in Oregon were there long before we transplanted any Rios, and they're very thin, but now we're seeing them in more areas. But yeah, Montana, I thought those were true Merriams.
There were supposed to be, that's what was put in, but there was a lot of introductions that were done,
technically few of the elk in Oregon are,
barnyard gates that were left open that then they interbred. But, yes, majority of what we have are supposed to be Merriams.
Technically few of the elk in Oregon are Roosevelt's. We trapped and transferred out of Billy Meadows and Chestnut and put them all over Western Oregon, the American elk that we got from Yellowstone. So
here's a good one. Best state to hunt just about anything.
That sounds like a slogan.
It should be. What state you think it is? What state do you think Onyx deemed is the best state to hunt just about anything?
Montana's got to be up there.
Well, it doesn't give me a ranking under each one of these. It just gives me the number one for each one of these.
I'm warning you, I might get frustrated by this one. I may disagree.
I know. That's why I said I'm excited to get to it. Idaho is what they said. Not just for big game though. Upland Bird talks about how many elk were killed in 2022. But then you've got
who put this out?
Onyx, 6 different types of upland bird. The best state to hunt unique species.
New Mexico.
They said Florida.
Oh, yeah.
They said Florida. And one of the first things they mentioned is gators. Pronghorn and mule deer.
Combined?
What'd you say?
Combined? You mean a state for both of them?
Yes.
Wyoming or Montana?
Yeah, Wyoming. Cool article from Onyx.
Yeah. Somewhere in there, they've got to have what state has the most pin drops?
Oh, I bet they have an article on it. What state do you think it is?
Wherever they have the most customers, probably Montana.
Yeah, I'd guess Montana.
Yeah. So what hot topics did you run into while at the expo, Justin? Pope and Young related.
In terms of controversy, there's a cool new process out there where they're actually preserving the velvet off of velvet taken animals. It's a proprietary thing the guy's putting on trying to get a patent on it or whatever. So I don't know the full details, but in essence, they basically trap the actual velvet hairs in plastic and then it rots away. And they're able to put in another type of plastic that then holds the hairs. And so you can wrap that back around the antler and save the actual original velvet.
Wait, what?
We can't go into this one very deep. I am still kind of confused, but they had a display there of one that they'd saved the velvet off of. And
say that again.
So
because I didn't wrap my head around what you just said.
You put some type of plastic on there that basically grabs onto the actual hairs on the velvet. So the actual velvet.
Okay.
And then you let it rot a little bit so the membrane pulls away from the hair. And as it pulls away, you then have the hair captured in this plastic. And then you're able to inject it into, some other plastic in there that then holds the hair like the membrane did, but it's the hair in plastic. And then they're able to put that onto an antler is I guess how
that makes
I
sense.
understood it, but don't quote me on that. I am not an expert by any means.
No, that does make sense. It's kind of like when they're spraying the velvet on, but they're spraying it on, like they're spraying velvet on that is the actual velvet from the animal.
If it's reattached in some way, shape, or form, what is our stance going to be on that? That's not going to be probably accepted.
Oh, it's going to the records committee. That's why I bring it up. I wanted to make you squirm, Tim. I could see the look on your face when I started telling the
story.
now you've got to ask the question of, has this?
Now I got to change my forms again. Somebody brought up something at, I think we're at a bash somewhere, and somebody said, so what if the person hunted from a saddle? And the first thing I'm thinking of, oh great, now I've got to change something on my forms. There's a new method of hunting out of a saddle. I don't know what it is. And some guy goes, well, wouldn't that also be a tree stand? And I go, I don't even know what a saddle is. So then I Googled it and figured out, yeah, well, that's just
it's a
all
tree
I
diaper.
worry about is, do I have to change my forms?
It's a tree diaper. That's what I call
tree
them.
Diaper. Yeah.
I get a lot of hate for bagging on saddle hunting, but Man,
This is just because you can't do it. You're scared.
No, it's just because I have a bad problem with. I've got no, probably 45 tree stands. And so for me, it's like, okay, if I buy a saddle, like I see the appeal of it. And if you're a running gun, especially a public land hunter, but if you're a running gun, always moving, always going to new trees, like I see the benefit of it. And for places I hunt, it would be cool. But it's like, okay, if I spend this money to buy this, it basically washes out all the money I've ever spent on these 45 tree stands. So that's really hard for me to do. Like, it's really hard for me to say, I'm going to make all these 45 tree stands obsolete and buy one saddle.
That's why Justin still runs film trail cameras.
Justin doesn't run trail cameras. I don't need to cheat. So Dylan, here's a thought. What if you use that saddle next to one of your stands that the deer knows where it is? You use the actual stand as a decoy.
See, now we're talking.
So then they're not wasted. Like the deer knows it's there. He's going to check there for Dylan. Oh, Dylan's not in the stand. I'll meander in, and then what? Dylan's there in the saddle.
I used to do that with my buddy. I'd have him place a bunch of duck decoys down on this one end of the slough because I knew they hated when they saw the decoys, no matter what, they knew, and they would always go the other end. So I'd tell them to go put the decoys down there. And while he's doing that, they'd fly over me.
That's what I was going to say. You put a buddy in the tree stand that's going to spook the deer to where you're at in the saddle. Yeah.
That's the number one game that I've found on public land, man. Don't get mad at all the hunters out there. Use them to your advantage.
Wait, is that why you want me to come hunting with you? Is that why you're like, you have an invite? Because you're going to be like, hey, this is where the bears are going to be at.
Check your pack and your back pockets. There'll probably be some tasty treats in there that smell horrible.
No, Tim. I want him to chase the bears out of the hell holes, and then I'll be sitting there on the front porch in my boxers waiting.
I won't take you to the ER though. I'll tell you that.
We don't chase bears in boxers. Okay.
That's funny. Now, Justin, I have a new answer, so I got to ask the question. Because I don't remember who told me this tip, but I was pleasantly surprised by this tip. What's one non-traditional hunting item you've always got with you?
Like I said, man, mine's the hatchet, dude. That's the same answer I gave you, I think, the first time I was on.
See, I think a hatchet would be considered traditional.
I think my new weird question is going to be not really a question, but something that's going to stick in your mind while you're hunting. No. And the next time we talk, you're going to go, why did you tell me that? I can't stop.
Tim's got a weird question. You got to stop and ask yourself what's coming.
Report back to me on how many Mylar balloons you find in the woods this season. It is weird. I don't know why I keep track of that, but I mean, there are years where it's 3 or 4 and a couple of years where it's like 20. I don't know why I find them out in the middle of the woods. I mean, I guess I understand why, but how'd they get through the trees all the way to the ground? And it's just kind of something weird that I notice.
Well, I've got a new answer. That's why I said I had to ask it.
Did you steal this answer for somebody else that you didn't air the podcast?
Yeah. No, I saw this tip shared on social media, and I was like, I want to say it was Alan Bolin, but I could be wrong. But like the Live Strong bracelets, those little rubber bracelets, of course, everybody has them now, not just the Live Strong anymore, but those little rubber bracelets, just wear a couple of them, because when you throw on rain gear, it's so, wavy on your arms, and it'll get, you'll slap your bowstring with it. Then you can just slide those up over the sleeve of your arm, and it'll suck that tight. You don't have to worry about getting, string slap on your clothing. And I'm like, that's brilliant. Like, it's something that, they weigh nothing. You don't have to keep up with them. You just wear it on your wrist. But if you have to put on rain gear, you just slide it over the sleeve, and it keeps the sleeve tight. Thought it was brilliant.
I can see the use there.
Yeah. I mean, just simple, easy. Don't have to worry about it.
I have rubber bands in my pack. You got to remember to look at them every year so that when you finally need one, they don't just go splat and break. But
yeah,
those would be a lot more durable.
Well, I'll tell you what really sparked that. I mean, I never shoot with like an arm guard on, even when I'm shooting a recurve. But I was at Liberty Ranch with our buddy Corey, and I went to shoot it, and it was freezing cold. I mean, just, I don't know, 0. And so I had on my like thickest, heaviest piece of gear, and I went to shoot, and I just slapped it got so caught up in the clothing that it was just a horrible shot. And I was like, crap. And so I started just kind of looking into this, like, because I don't want to carry an arm guard with me. How do you keep clothing tight?
An archery sleeve of some kind that compresses every one of your layers.
A lot of guys did say that, like they'll go to academy and get like the shooting sleeve that athletes wear, and then just slide that over. But and I want to say it was Allen, but I could be wrong. Just carry a couple of those bracelets, and then you just put them on your arm, and it sucks all the clothing tight. And I'm like, that's a brilliant idea. So that's my new answer. One of my new answers. Justin, what's your go-to backcountry snack? You got to be a snacker, right?
He makes all his own.
No, it's a toss-up between the peanut butter bacon tortilla wrap.
Yeah, dude.
Then Becca's grandpa was in the like first mountain or whatever in World War II, and like he had these things that were like, basically it's a survival bar, but it's made with way more butter and oats and like homemade, we call them Becca bars now because she's modified the recipe. But when we were on the moose hunt, you're out hunting all day, floating, whatever, you're getting starving, you're running out of energy, man. You'd pound one of those Becca bars and get on the sticks, and that raft would come right up onto plane, and you'd be headed for the next camp. The amount of energy those things contain is amazing.
Are they good enough that you eat them when you're not out in the backcountry?
If I ate them when I was not in the backcountry, I would not be able to make it around the showroom floor. I'd gain so much weight. These are a calorie-dense item.
And can you light them on fire?
We haven't tried to light one on fire because they're not delicious, but I can tell you when we did the moose float, we'd done our calculations on calories, and we were intaking 6,000 calories a day doing a float hunt, and I came out the exact same weight I went in.
I don't want any of those. And I go on big hunts just so I can lose some weight.
Yeah.
Yeah, Dylan, if you come out for bear, you'll have to convince Becca to have you some Becca bars. Then you kill that stinky old boar in the bottom of some canyon. I'm like, well, you're on your own, buddy. Eat one of those, you'll carry it out whole.
Sounds good to me, bro. I'll eat. Well, Justin, what was your most exciting conversation at Western? Because I know mine. What was your most exciting conversation from Western or sheep? We haven't really talked about sheep yet. What was your best conversation at one of those?
There was an article on scoring that came out from Mark Kenyon over at Meat Eater. And talking about whether or not with both Clay Newcomb and Kenyon at Meat Eater, does the scoring system need updated? Is it outdated?
Look at Tim.
have we put too much emphasis on? Oh yeah, I was ready to fight too, Tim. Lucky you weren't there.
No, but when you said who it was, they're really thought out people. So I'm very curious.
And so I went into a pretty deep conversation on why we can't really change the scoring system. If we were to redo it today, would we have a 60-day drying period? I'd argue probably not. Would certain things be done the same? Would we take the G1 on elk the same way we do? Yeah, maybe not. But you got to realize as soon as we say, well, it'd be easier to do it this way, or this would be a better way to do it, we're throwing out all that data from 1950 in terms of Boone and Crockett and 61 in terms of Pope and Young. And so is it a perfect system? No. But changing it just to change it because we're smarter than the generation before us or whatever, no, that doesn't work either. And then that kind of led into, are we putting too much emphasis on the scoring system? And, when we started this, it was a classic bait and switch. We're trying to get biological data. And so we created a book. So people wanted to strive to make it in that book, and there were bragging rights and, whatever. Well, then we were able to take that data and use it for scientific purposes. I think now we've got a hunting, and their point, I agree, we've got a hunting populace that does care a lot more about conservation than, maybe some of the earlier generations that didn't really have a full grasp. And as a record keeping organization, maybe we need to do a better job of saying like, hey, that buck you took that just barely makes it. Yeah, you've got a bigger one in there, but for conservation purposes, that smaller deer is just as important. We need every one of those so we can show trends, we can show the future. And I pointed out to them, like, Boone and Crockett, they allow people to enter a deer anonymously or an elk or whatever it may be if they want to. Well, the fact of the matter is nobody's ever really done it. And so, those conversations are always good because, the other thing that was really good that came out of it was, if we were going to design a scoring system to recognize hunters, we would not use the criteria we did. All those criticisms you see against the system, oh, give it credit for everything it grew. Why are you measuring this? Use this. If our goal was to recognize just the hunter, yeah, we'd have different criteria, but it's not. It's to recognize the conservation and the trends in conservation. And that's why there's deductions. That's why abnormalities created by stressors are come off of a typical score. And I just really enjoy those conversations that, because people are talking about score still matters, but just keeping it in perspective and talking with these influencers and explaining like, hey, no, you're right. Like, this isn't a perfect system, but here's why we can't make this slight change. You're right. We could do this if we were just worried about hunters. And so for me, talking to somebody influential like that, that's very, well-read and thoughtful in the future of hunting, and their intentions are to, ensure the future. When we have that conversation, to me, that's a great day at work. That's why I'm still in this field.
Have you ever read Andrew McKean's article on a better scoring system?
Yep. No, most of the McKean stuff, he's a friend of mine. We talked about a lot of that when those were written. He's actually a major for both organizations as well. So
now, but his really, like, his better scoring system really isn't like what we're talking about.
Right.
His better scoring system went into like energy exerted to kill that animal. Like, does that animal score higher in your mind if you walk out and it's the first animal you see and you shoot it and you're done? Or if you spend 37 days in the backcountry trying to kill that one animal, like sweat equity, like how much sweat equity went into killing that animal, type deal. And so it was a really cool article. I enjoyed the conversation with him about it, really.
I love McKean to death, but that sure sounds to me like he's trying to bump up the scores of the lesser hunters. If it takes you a month to kill what somebody can do in a day, maybe you're not a great hunter.
Now, I do got to ask a question about the 60-day drying period. Why is it there? Like, if we want to truly remember and preserve that animal for how it was when it was harvested, why make the 60-day drying period?
Think about the answer. Think about it first, though, Dylan. Really think about why it's there.
No. I've had that conversation with both of you before, I think. I'm asking for the listener.
Okay.
What's changed in hunting since the 50s? Dylan, I mean, what's changed?
Technology.
Right? Including, were airplanes commonly available back then?
No.
Was the world moving at a way slower pace?
Yes.
The Chadwick ram, the greatest North American trophy ever killed, was a 30-day backcountry trip. at that time, is it fair to make that, that dude that's way in the backcountry and he's going to be 30 days before he gets out and then he has to get it scored? Is it fair that that guy that shot one off his porch can have it scored the same day? The 60-day drying period was implemented because in theory, the majority of the moisture is out of the rack at that 60-day period. You're down to roughly ballpark less than 10%, which is kind of where it plateaus. And so that was put in to make it as fair as possible to everybody. You couldn't shoot sheep in the Northwest Territories out of a helicopter. You couldn't have it scored that day. You had to get out of the backcountry. And so it was a stipulation,
equalizing measure.
It was a stipulation put in to level the playing field.
And it still is today. And one of the things that I explain is that as measures and as record books trying to capture data sets and entries, we don't just want current harvest. We also want past harvest. And if 90% of the drying does take place in the first 60 days, now I have leveled the playing field from a buck that you harvested in 2023 to your grandfather's buck that's on the wall that we should also measure that was killed in 1960. Now, there are other conditions that can make things shrink more or affect that. But I also think there's I think it's obvious, a pretty serious thing to consider if you were ever to remove a 60-day drying period, is that the integrity of the system could significantly drop. Outfitters would be hiring me, would be hiring Justin, would be hiring measures to follow them around like a second guide. And the minute before they've said their prayer and thank you and even taken field photos, I'm putting a tape on an animal that's barely taking its last breath. And that competition would be so heavy at the forward end after the kill that they would try to manipulate it. And I'm not just saying outfitters, I'm just saying in general, there would be an attempt to manipulate that. And we don't want the integrity of the system to be to have that ability. And so when everyone has to wait, they have to wait. And every animal has had to wait. No animal hasn't. There is a difference between a velvet blacktail in California being killed in July, how much it dries and shrinks, compared to a velvet whitetail killed in Kentucky the very first day of the season. They were killed nearly 45 days apart. They were still growing in California. There's a lot of factors, but at 60 days, it was definitely to even playing fields.
Yeah.
So what species shrinks the most?
Well, I mean, it only goes to reason. The caribou moose grows the quickest. You shoot it still in velvet has a high moisture content. Of course, it's got the most moisture. They're commonly shot in velvet. They grew the quickest. There's the most water in there. They're going to shrink the most.
What
and for what we measure
the least?
Oh, probably bison.
Yeah, horned game. Big horns, mountain goats. You'll hear of the oddball. Oh, it shrunk this much, and I don't not believe them, but I know that, for example, when I killed my mountain goat, once we got it back to camp, I scored it that night in camp. 60 days later, I had a reputable scorer from Oregon score it, which is the official BNC entry on it. And then 3 years later, after my wife got certified as a measurer and kept looking at it on the wall, I'm like, that's got to be bigger. And we pulled it down and measured it, all 3 times the exact same number.
So what can people not expect? Because I know it's going to be different, wildly different. But if I shoot a whitetail and 60 days later, I mean, you're not talking 4 inches. You're not talking.
Well, here's what we're talking, Dylan. We're talking about you measuring it the day after you killed it, who is not an official measure, and then an official measure measuring with the correct rules. No, I'm not picking on you, but I'm picking on every single person. No, I'm explaining it to every single person out there. There's a wide room for a difference in score, and it may not have anything to do with shrinkage.
Well, no, Tim.
But talking actual shrinkage, like actual shrinkage, is there like a 1%, 2%, is there any kind of number that you can almost guess, expect?
There's not, because it completely depends on the point in which those antlers were harvested. That buck that's still shedding velvet has a higher moisture content. We're losing 90% of it. If a higher percentage of those antlers are water, then later on in the season when they've firmed up and they've been fighting, you're going to have a different amount of moisture. So that 90% of the moisture in there, when that moisture content's varying, there's not a set amount. Tim's point though, and not even the fact that you're not an official measure, which is a problem, which we'll discuss later.
Oh, okay.
As a term of your employment.
Crap.
No, I can tell you I've been guilty of it. You get a nice buck, you get a nice, whatever it may be, you're on cloud nine as you should be. Man, you just killed the biggest deer in the forest. You're giving your wife a hug if she's hunting with you.
I don't have that problem.
Buddy, a high five. You're on the tailgate, you grab your tape measure, you're pulling a tape on it, you're excited. You're not quite as precise. And a lot of shrinkage is that in my opinion, that initial excitement, that not precise to like, okay, it's been 2 months, let's take a breath, let's calm down, let's do it correctly. I think that's where a lot of it comes from. Right. There is some shrinkage. Obviously, we see it. We have allowances that when they come to panel, we know that after 6 years, we're going to see some variation. It is not as significant as one would think. It's usually an eighth or two here or there type thing.
Yeah.
And one thing to remember, Dylan, when that you'll learn this in a workshop one day, is that when we're measuring to the eighth of an inch, if it hits a 16th, if it truly hits it and it's between that 16th and the next eighth, we round up. And if it's below that 16th, we round down. And so those 16ths, when those get affected, it could shrink as much as a 16th somewhere and you lose an eighth. But this question comes up so much that I measure a couple of these pronghorn and blacktail and a couple of my skulls on a regular annual basis. I've probably been doing it for about 10 years. And so far,
that just means you're anal about stuff, bro.
I want to be able to answer the question. Sort of, the blacktail in the last 5 years hasn't shrunk. The pronghorn shrank about I would say an eighth. 1 year it was about an eighth each year. Pronghorn are made up of something very different than.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We got to remember pronghorn are the only horned game that sheds its sheath every year.
Yeah.
So if you don't pay attention, Dylan, your pronghorn will one day just disappear. They keep shrinking.
I was going to ask that. When does it stop? Like
exactly. I'm a month behind on. I try to do it in that holiday time period because I often have more time. But I need to do my elk again. But the bear skulls have stayed the same. The pronghorn seems to be the only thing that 60 days didn't capture all the shrinkage. And so far, the blacktail and the bear skulls have been fine. The elk was just fine last year. I haven't measured it yet this year.
Tim,
I do get that question a lot.
How are those sheaths reattached to the pronghorn, or are they?
These are all adhesive, just a little bit of Bondo. And so it's not fully stuffed, but
yeah,
a little bit of Bondo.
Here's the pointer for the listeners on pronghorn. Have those sheaths removed as quick as possible and put back on with a Bondo filler to minimize the shrinkage. That is within the rules. You're not doing anything wrong. No, you can't modify the horn, but if you leave them off the horn cores and just let them sit, they will shrink significantly more than if
Can you give me a tip on how to make whitetails 10 inches bigger?
Learn to hunt.
Wow.
Measure them the Dylan, Arkansas way, like you told me a few years ago.
Boy, I can do that.
I still love that Dylan says, you mean I don't get a circumference between every antler?
I'm like, bro, that's a 170.
You only kill 4 towards your shirt yourself.
No, Dylan, 170. Honestly, to that question, I think the biggest problem we have in the whitetail world is that everybody's a scorer. Everybody throws a throws a number on a deer, and realistically, the numbers they're throwing out, to kill an actual legitimate 140-inch typical whitetail is a giant. You see that on a lot of, social media posts or anything it may be. That legit 140 buck is going to be a 160 to 170, according to what people are saying. And so I think that you're stuck in a hard spot because you deal with, these anal scorers like Tim and myself that are not going to let you have 1/8 more than that deer is, and we're saying like, hey, no, but it's still a great buck. And a lot of people just don't realize, like, 120-inch deer is a great deer. 100-inch deer is a great deer. And so everybody's chasing these big numbers. And I'd argue a lot of them aren't probably legit. Be happy with what you took. And like, if the biggest buck that you see all season and the one you're targeting is 112 inches, heck yeah, be happy with that. Don't worry that number is not 125 or 160 or 185 or whatever your benchmark is.
And I do need to get my deer. The deer I shot with my son, I do need to get it actually officially measured, because I came up and I've learned everything from Tim. Tim taught me how to do it. And I came up a 1/4 inch short. It was 124 and 3/4. So maybe an actual measure would get it, and it would be 125. I need to get it scored.
Yeah, you never know.
We have this recorded. We need to do that one on a podcast. We need to check Dylan's measuring.
Now we have to. I think we definitely have to. Kind of like Justin and I are salmon fishermen, and when you're upset that, you think this is a 20-pound salmon, or steelhead, people, yeah, I caught a 20-pounder. That's the benchmark, If they actually, instead of just do girth and length, if they actually weigh the fish and they're disappointed that it's only 18 pounds, that's kind of the same point. You caught an 18-pound steelhead. It's a giant. You caught a 30-pound salmon. Yeah, you've caught bigger and you will catch smaller, and it's in there somewhere. But if we were recording salmon entries, we want to know what's taken in that area. And if we were measuring them by weight, hey, if you're killing in an area consistent record book quality animals, that is incredible. If this one isn't bigger than last year, although you think it is what it is. The number's in there. We'll find it. Yeah. It's not always what people think. I think people that I'm around at shows warm up really well when they come over, and I write down on the table, what did you think it measured? What do you think it scores? Who measured it? And if they go, my outfitter or my taxidermist or my buddy or whatever, it's just kind of, I give them a reality check, say, we'll see where it's at. But then when they watch you measure, you always catch them going, oh, I didn't know that. Or, I didn't realize that. Oh.
You mean I don't get 2 widest points? Man, dang.
Well, the other thing too, the system was never designed to rank hunters, right?
Right.
Glenn St. Charles didn't come to Boone and Crockett and say, I want to use your system because I want to find the best bow hunter. He said, I want to use this system to show that archery is successful in taking mature animals and show these states that they can implement an archery season, and it is ethical and it is the future. We are keeping a data set. We are not ranking hunters. It's a piece of the experience. You still need to enjoy the meat. You still need to, enjoy the camaraderie or the time alone, or however you choose to hunt. That number, if it makes a book, that's just another piece of the story. And that's almost more for the conservation going forward. That's to make sure your kids and their kids still have the same opportunities we did. Nobody should ever be excited or disappointed that a number isn't where they were expecting. That was never what it was intended to do. And if you've reduced the hunt to purely numbers, you've done yourself a major disservice in the outdoors.
And on that note, Dylan has left the building.
So Tim, what are all you putting in for this year? What states are you in the game for?
I'm definitely going to be in every Western state. I think this year is going to be the year that I go for apply for moose as a non-resident in Idaho instead of deer and elk. But other than that, I don't put in for California. I don't know why. I'm so close to California in a way I don't really know a whole lot about it. And I don't hunt in Washington very often. I don't know why. But I added Alaska this year, thanks to you. I added that to my list. I am going to be getting my non-resident apps in for Iowa, and I think Iowa and Kansas. Yeah.
So Tim,
I used to apply for Maine. I don't anymore. It's too far out now. It's not attainable.
No, Tim, I was going to say Washington's interesting because obviously we're not very far either. And, having grown up where I did, I mean, it was close. The thing is there, you have to get a general tag to put in for the draws. And they have some tremendous late season blacktail hunts, public land, or publicly accessible land. But kind of the key that I found there is if you're going to make a play at it, you have to have somewhere you can go and do a general season hunt. So you're not just buying a tag and basically burning it, waiting for that draw.
A license, you mean? Yeah. Yeah.
No, you actually have to buy a deer tag or an elk tag to put in for a permit.
Oh, okay.
So you have to have the general deer license to put in for a special deer license is how I understand it. So I'm going to have to buy a deer tag every single year waiting for my draw. Whereas a lot of states don't make you do that, which is, in my opinion, why Washington's a little bit tougher. I mean, you're dedicating a week of deer hunting, maybe not even quality deer, just to try to maybe draw that one good tag, 8-10 years down the road.
Right.
I'll tell you what I do, gentlemen. I go to states that I can just buy a tag and hunt.
See, I live in a state that the only month I don't have a big game season is July. And so, there's that as well. But if you're in the West, you're in a state like you are, Dylan, where you have an opportunity every year, it's greatly to your advantage. I do feel sorry for the states that takes a resident 10, 15 years to draw a tag. There are states you can go that there's general over-the-counter licenses every single year. Where I live, I can hunt a deer, an elk, and a bear. And so I've always got that in my back pocket, which makes it very easy for me to invest in a Nevada or a Utah or something where, I know I'm waiting a long time for the opportunity because I'm not waiting that long to go deer hunting. I'm just waiting that long to go deer hunt that state. And I probably wouldn't be going for those top end tags if I didn't have general hunts in my back pocket that I could enjoy every year.
And that's and I'm even in a more unique situation than that because being in Kansas, I'm so close to 5 different states that I can buy an over-the-counter deer tag for. I can hunt 5 states within like 4 hours. Driving 4 hours, I can be in 5 different states to hunt. And that's not even just whitetails. That's bears in Arkansas or bears in Oklahoma or, elk in Colorado. I can be an elk in Colorado in 6 hours. Now I'm not hunting elk in Colorado. This year I'm hunting in Idaho and then hopefully bear hunting in Montana. But and that's why it's really difficult for me. I'm like, dude, I've got enough over-the-counter deer tags or bear tags to hunt within a 5-hour driving distance. So it's difficult for me.
Yeah.
Well, gentlemen, I can truly say that I didn't think that we were going to get on like the 60-day drying period topic on this episode, but I should have known talking to Tim and Justin that we were going to talk some sort of antler scoring and antler deductions and antler drying times or something, but I didn't. So, gentlemen, thank you so much for coming on. Guys, thank you so much for listening. Stay tuned because we did have some really fun conversations at Western that I'm excited to announce some partnerships and things that we got going on here at Pope and Young. So stay tuned. But guys, thank you so much for listening. Y'all have a fantastic week.